5 kgs of mango pickle.
That's a lot.
This is our homemade mango pickle. We got like 5 of these.
Oh, can I taste? Give me one.
Oh.
Here, look. Here, give me one.
Good one, good one.
All right, Jen, it's yours.
Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pickling with me, Jen. As you can see, my name right now is Jen A Camera. There is a B camera. Check it out. B camera. You can go and look at B camera and pin it on your screen at any point if you want to see a close-up of what's going on. I have to hold it.
Is that a sweet potato?
Yes. So what I am pickling today, because I gave you a list of things that do and don't pickle well, I'm pickling 3 carrots and 2 sweet potatoes.
Wait, what? I got sweet potatoes at the farmer's market this morning. I've never had pickled sweet potatoes.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. I mean, everything all tastes kind of the same when you pickle it. I saw you guys have some cucumbers going on. I have also pickled zucchini and squash. Monsi is dancing. You can pickle garlic and tomatoes and mushrooms, which I left off the list because it takes an extra couple of steps. You can pickle them, you just have to treat all 3 of those things beforehand because garlic is naturally antiviral and antibacterial, and the way we're gonna do this pickling is using the Lactobacillus bacterium to make lactic acid for us, which means we don't want to use anything antibiotic against it because then that defeats our purpose. So you have to treat garlic ahead of time, you have to treat mushrooms ahead of time because as a fungus, they're gonna encourage yeast to grow and you don't want bad yeast growing in your pickling brine. And then tomatoes they're acidic to start with, so it's really hard for it to become lactic acid, so you have to treat tomatoes as well. So I'm not covering that, that's more of an advanced topic. We're just gonna do the easy stuff. So the pickling technique I'm gonna teach you guys is called lacto-fermentation, because all pickles are fermented, except for the ones that are just brined and just soaked. So lacto-fermentation uses a bacterium called Lactobacillus bacterium. Now here's a question for the audience. Somebody's gonna have to unmute to answer it. You have heard of Lactobacillus before? Where have you heard of Lactobacillus before?
Lactobacillus is in the gut?
It's in our guts, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. US folks specifically, I know that if you have bought a product from the grocery store, they advertise on the front contains live and active lactobacillus cultures.
That is the
yogurt.
Yogurt.
Yep. Yogurt.
There's also in wine, there's a process called malolactic fermentation.
That's
which
right.
Is converting one acid into another acid or something like that.
That's right. And you would use that technique as well if you were pickling tomatoes, because tomatoes are acidic naturally. But yes, yogurt. We know lactobacillus because we usually think of it as the milk bacterium, but it's actually used for more things than milk. It is when you buy probiotics from the pharmacy to get your gut treated after you've had digestive issues. Your probiotics are going to be lactobacillus bacteria. It is everywhere. It is in the air we breathe. It is in the surfaces we touch. It is up our nose. It is on our hands right now. And we love it. It is a helpful probiotic bacterium. We do not want to kill it. But it's not a very strong bacterium. It can be outcompeted. And we do not want it to be outcompeted by decomposition bacteria as we make our pickles. And that's where the salt comes in. If you have a salt solution between 3 and 5% salt in water, the lactobacillus will thrive and the salt acts as an inhibitor against any other nasties in the microbiotic world. So it will inhibit yeast growth, it will inhibit strep and staph and all the other bacteria we might encounter and will allow the lactobacillus to get a foothold and thrive. So to start with, we're going to start with our vegetables. We're going to start with our jars. To do pickling, you're going to need Well, you don't really need a closed jar, but it makes it easier. I have mason jars because that's what's more common in the United States to make pickles in, but it can literally be any jar at all you want. Here's my example of any jar at all you want. Hold on. Any jar at all you want. This one is a spaghetti sauce jar. It can be an old salsa jar, or if you are willing to open pickle, it can be any container without a lid, but there are some extra steps there. The lid really does help. And while you will see me use my super bougie, the camera is hard to do at the same time. My super bougie, this is a pickling airlock. It has a one-way valve at the top. It lets only gases out without letting any outside air in, and the gas that we will be generating is carbon dioxide because our lactobacillus friends fart carbon dioxide. While it lets all the gases out without letting any air in, you don't need to do that at all. You just need to either keep your lid on real tight and then every so often go in every day and just open it a little bit until you hear your jar burp, and they call that burping your jar, and then closing it again, or you can leave your lid a little loose the whole time, which is, I'll be honest, that's the way I like to do it. And then you don't have to burp your jar every day. But if you leave your lid on tight, and you go to pickle, it's a tight lid. It's hard to tell with cameras, but if you leave your lid on tight and you go to pickle and you leave it alone, you can have your jars explode. So you do need to give that carbon dioxide an escape valve. Either burp your jars every day or leave the lid on loose. The reason you would want to burp your jars every day, because I'm assuming none of you guys have airlocks like me, none of y'all are bougie enough. The reason you would want to burp your jars as opposed to leave your lid on loose is because this salt helps the lactobacillus thrive, but it also allows one particular kind of yeast to thrive. And that'll create sort of a white, I don't even want to say waxy surface layer, it's just a thin white sheen on the very, very top of your stuff if you leave your jar lid on loose. That's called chyme yeast, K-A-H-Y-M, K-A-Y-M, there's a Y in it, K-H-Y-M, chyme yeast. It is non-toxic to humans. You can eat it. It's not a problem. It's not going to give you a yeast infection. There is no negative part to having it. Just some people think it looks icky. And if you burp your jar, there's no chance of chyme yeast. That's all it comes down to. So you right now make a decision. Do you want to burp your jars, or are you going to just take your chances with chyme yeast? So,
and plastic jars are okay. Plastic jars are okay?
Plastic jars are fine. In fact, you won't have it. It probably will not explode on you if you use plastic. Plastic's a little bit more forgiving. So plastic is absolutely fine. I've done it in plastic. I've done it in plastic containers all the time. But
BPA free, BPA free, but plastic BPA free.
That's on you whether you want to eat it or not. The lactobacillus doesn't care. It's going to pickle regardless. Open your jars, wash your hands. Even though I just said lactobacillus is on everything, go wash your hands because you're making food that other people might eat and they don't want the rest of the gross that's on your body. Go wash your hands. And then come back. And then we will start cutting and filling. Let's go wash your hands. You washed your hands? Good. Let me smell. I need to smell the soap. Like I do with my work kids. I'm like, you said you washed your hands, but until I smell that soap, I don't believe you.
Put on your gloves.
Howard, go wash your hands.
I wonder if when we do canning, whether Howard's going to do it because he's the master of cans.
I've got my canning pot ready. We've got a gas stove. We are going to can like beasts. It's going to be great. It's going to take a long time, though. Great, but lengthy.
Why do you prefer a gas stove?
Because we have to bring like 8 quarts of water up to a boil. Try to do that on an electric stove, you're talking 2 to 3 hours. On a gas stove, it's more like a half an hour. In fact, on that note, since the rest of you guys, your pickles won't be ready for canning for at least 2 weeks. Anu and Bhumi in India, 2 to 2.5 weeks with the rock salt. I'm going to go ahead and take my canning pot and fill it with water and put it on the stove just to start heating, because it's going to take a long time for 8 quarts of water to heat up.
Can you specify the amount of water again?
Specify the amount of water for our pickles. We
Yes.
won't know yet. So we're gonna keep it in another container. You pour the brine in over your pickles once you've put your pickles in your jar. So we don't know the amount yet. We're going to, in a separate bowl, put 3 to 4 cups of water, which a cup is about 250 milliliters. So either either 1,000 milliliters, either a liter of water or 750 milliliters, whichever amount you feel you most desire. Maybe I won't start my canning water early, because there's a whole bunch of explaining with canning water to do. I will wait. We'll just have a half an hour chat while we wait for it to boil, because a watched pot never boils.
So canning water is separate from pickling water.
Yes, yeah, the canning water is separate from pickling water. And you guys have like 2.5 weeks before you even have to worry about canning. And even better, you don't have to can your pickles at all unless you're shipping them.
Priority number 1.
If you're just gonna keep them at home, you just crank that lid on tight once the pickling process is done, and you store it on a shelf.
Okay. And you also mentioned the water should be kept overnight in an open container.
That's right.
We had these bottles of water. We just left the lid on. That is fine, right?
Yep, that's fine. You want the goal here is, in case your municipality, and again, I know I'm dealing with people all around the world, in case your municipality put a residual disinfectant in the water, you want to give that a chance to evaporate, because we want the lactobacillus, which will normally be killed by a disinfectant, to live and thrive. We are taking care of making sure other yucks don't thrive with our salt. Yeah, in the U.S., your residual disinfectant would be chlorine or chloramine, and those will all evaporate and volatilize overnight and go away.
Yeah, I remember having a friend from Asia where they would boil the water and then leave it sit out on the counter overnight before they would drink it. And I think
Howard, or are we waiting for Howard? I told him to go wash his hands, and he turned his camera off. Oh, he's back. Okay. It is time to cut. So the pickles that you U.S. folks are used to getting in the store are cut lengthwise into fingers and then stuffed into the jar. I happen to like it in coins, or sometimes in pizza slices, which is a coin that's then cut into triangles. It is up to you. The point is, you want to cut your vegetables because you want that brine and that lactic acid to get inside the vegetables. So we are just literally slicing and then tossing it in our jar. You want to fill the jar as full as it can get. And if you have trouble, grab the handle of a spoon or the handle of your knife and tamp it down. It is okay if it gets squashed. If you want to be bougie, you can get what's called a pickle masher. And
I thought that was a pepper grinder.
I did too.
Pepper grinder would work. Pickle masher, the bougie ones, have a big end for wide mouth mason jars and a small end for narrow mouth mason jars, because this matters. But I have done most of my pickles with the back side of a spoon. You do not have to peel your vegetables. In fact, if they've come from a garden source and the outside is rinsed, but might still have dirt microbes, that's good. That's gonna seed us with some lactobacillus already. If you want to make flavored pickles, you would combine various different foods together, like a layer of carrots and then a layer of sweet potatoes. If you could do a layer of something and then a layer of herbs. I don't have any more left, but Fred sent me a lovely bunch of basil, and I use those to make pickles. Basil I like almost as much, if not more, than dill for making pickles.
Basil in pickles. I have lots of basil.
Yeah, toss some basil in there. It's going to make a much stronger tasting pickle than your dill.
I have a question. Fresh or dried is preferred for the pickling process? Does it matter?
It's going to get wet as soon as you get it wet.
Sweat picking.
So,
What are your thoughts on marjoram?
I have never pickled with marjoram, but you know what? No time like the present. I believe there is no such thing as a bad flavor.
I'm gonna do it. Thank you.
No such thing as too many interesting flavors. The one thing I do know is if you're using an herb that is very pungent, don't also use another herb that is also very pungent in a non-complementary flavor. I tried that. It did not work so well.
So
Also,
like mustard seed and I don't know.
you can use mustard seed, that'll work. But I tried also Tajin, which is or Tajin, which is a sort of a pepper and lime spice mix from Mexico. Don't do it. The lime does not work out well. That lime does not pickle well.
I have a question regarding the cucumbers.
Yes.
Do we remove the bitterness first before pickling?
You don't need to. The pickling will handle that.
Oh, okay.
The pickling is going to turn it acidic, and that bitter flavor is basic, so it's going to take it through the pH process and get rid of that.
There's Tajin.
That's Tajin, yeah. Or's got it. Don't pickle with that. I did.
What about just putting lemon rinds in?
That works, but you want to be really careful about what you're mixing it with in terms of flavors. For example, green beans and lemon rinds are a very big no. I already tried that too. Don't pickle green beans with lemon rinds. That's why I also said don't do legumes, because your legumes are gonna be weird when they pickle. They're gonna naturally become a little sweet, and then they're gonna have some weird flavors.
And this watermelon rinds you
Yes.
mentioned, these are okay, right?
I have some here, so these are my finished pickles that I'm going to use for my examples. But yeah, I have some pickled watermelon rind in here.
Okay.
That's what I'm
Okay.
eating. This is from 2 years
Excuse me,
ago.
Jan, it's 4:30.
Hold on, guys.
4:30,
While you're cutting,
4:31.
I'm going to go do, yes.
All right, while she takes a break, I wanted to show you what I got at the farmer's market. This is what I'm going to pickle. Can you see this?
Is that
This
leeks?
Turnips.
You can eat the greens too, right?
Yeah, turnip greens. I'm going to just cut the greens off and then pickle the turnips. 'Cause I don't know.
You can do
I don't really like.
You can layer. You can do the greens. I would do the greens on top. It'll help keep the stuff down. But yeah.
Really, to actually pickle the greens too? I was just going to cook them.
Yeah, it would make sort of a sauerkraut.
In India, during winters, we pickle cauliflower, garlic, and the turnips together. And it's a very common one during winters here.
What kind of spice?
Indian spices. We use turmeric, chili.
Ooh, okay. That's what I'm going to do. Because I don't really like turnips very much. But I've had pickled turnips before. So I wanted to show you my collection of pickled stuff. I showed you before the hot mango pickle, of course. This is my watermelon rind, but I did it like bread and butter pickle style.
Those are called quick pickles because they rely on heat to do it as opposed to acid.
So I actually canned this like 3 years ago.
Is there sugar in there? Because bread and butter pickles are usually sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
got
the
sugar and then what is it? The little dill seeds. But my favorite pickle, I get this from a local lady who's from Haiti. And it's Haitian Pickles, and it's got just basically a little of everything. Any of your leftover vegetables. It's got cabbage, green and red peppers, carrots, habanero pepper, green onions, vinegar, lime juice, salt, and pepper.
really, really well. Peppers, pickles.
And it's, you know, because it's got the hot peppers in it, it's very hot. But I don't know if you've ever had Jamaican food, the same, similar. You just put a little of that on fried food. Another friend of mine locally made these pickled asparagus. sticks. And this is the part of the asparagus people don't usually eat. You know, it's the stem itself.
Right.
Yes.
And, but it
Yeah,
gets
'cause
really
it's a little
soft
tough.
when you cook it. And then pickled beets. Those are,
Oh yeah, I like pickled beets.
oh, and in my fridge, I also have some pickled onions.
And
And
I
that's
like
just,
pickled onions.
yep, the pickled onions are just,
You're gonna be
you know.
canning some of my pickled onions.
I've seen him use the little pearl onions for pickling
oh,
too.
this isn't that
Pickle
fancy.
anything. I've pickled some big ones.
So, all right, let me cut my turnips. Oh yeah, I was gonna give a poll.
इसको दबाने के लिए dish
Do you guys want to try this poll? This is my first time ever doing a poll.
Do you think pickles are hard to make? No.
Do you think pickles are hard to make?
You're asking Bumi and Anu who pickle, and Monsi who is waving her hands in the air and trying to touch
Just
her elbow.
Looks like she's waiting to start surgery.
Neither are difficult.
It's okay to touch the food. You want them to get the outside bacteria. This doesn't need to be hermetically sealed.
Then why wash hands beforehand then?
Because you want to get your poop off your hands. Because I know you. I know you don't wash your hands after you go to the bathroom.
Okay, now that's just gross.
Only when I'm alone.
My mom and I are also talking, so a lot of the hand waving was to her. Just letting you know.
All right, anybody else want to vote?
I'm trying, hold on.
I don't know if I can vote and run the poll. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, canning and pickling, of course, in the previous generation or so was common because people didn't have refrigeration.
That's
So,
what I was gonna say. I thought the whole point.
Yeah,
of having
I grew
pickles
up
is
without
not to leave-
electricity, so we canned, dried, and pickled everything. Now I'm lazy and I freeze a lot of stuff, and then in the winter, I might cook it and can it for later while it's cold out, you know.
so I have a question. In the old days where they had salt pork and beef and all that, was that actually pickling or was that a different system?
Well, they were
No.
hydrating that, but the method of making that, if you were to in some way capture the moisture coming off the pork and allow the because lactobacillus doesn't grow in dry, it only grows in wet. You can actually turn that into a pickle. You can pickle your pork that way. They do that a lot for garlic. That's how you would normally do garlic, and that is how you do sauerkraut. Sauerkraut, you salt your cabbage, and then you put it in a jar so that it captures the moisture coming off the cabbage, the cabbage's own moisture, and that is what the lactobacillus grows in.
All right, who said pickling is really easy? I don't
You
think
had
Jen
a
voted.
completely
Did you
symmetrical
vote,
poll
Jen?
result.
Perfectly symmetrical.
So I'm doing a layer of carrot, a layer of sweet potato, another layer of carrot, another layer of sweet potato in my jar. You're not limited to just one foodstuff in each jar.
Every time I can something purple, it leaches out and the water turns purple and the thing turns
The water
unpurple.
turn pink. It is a pH indicator, and that is very helpful to know when your pickles are done.
Are we pickling everything together or separately?
You can pickle however you want. I pickle together. Other people pickle separately. I like putting it together because it's like a salad. You
It
never know.
depends if
absolutely
you're
hilarious.
rich in
Jen-
jars. If you're poor in jars, everything goes into one jar. But if you have many jars, I suppose you could separate.
Yeah,
Well, when we were growing up, we just had one. It was about a 3-gallon crock,
yeah.
and you just put everything in it, and then there was a rock that weighted it down, and then it had a cover on it. And then at the end of the week, we'd take it out and put it in another pot, and then we'd put another batch in there.
Yep, that would be a fermentation crock, and they are expensive. They're like over $100 in the US. Ain't nobody got that much money. All of my bougie stuff, my pickling weights, my airlocks, and my masher were less than 40. So I will use, thank you very much, I will use tomato sauce jars.
One more thing on, so basically basil in India, we didn't get the dried spicy one, so we just plugged a few fresh leaves. Will that work?
Perfect. Yeah, the dried is not going to work as well as the fresh because the dried has to rehydrate first. So you guys are doing better than if somebody put in dried.
Okay.
But this is the Indian basil.
So this is this one which I'm showing on the.
Wait. Let me show you one.
What's Indian basil? Here, let's see if I can pin you guys.
Yeah, it definitely looks different because our leaves are smooth.
Huh.
Yeah, ours are not, but this is the basil that we get very easily here. And it has very nice flavor. We use it in our tea, masala tea that we make.
I've never seen that. Most of the basil here is Italian or sweet
What
basil.
is it called? What is the thing that you're using?
Tulsi.
Tulsi.
Oh, they're using tulsi. Do you think tulsi will be okay with pickling?
Oh, yeah.
My mom.
I grew some I grew some basil. It was called African Blue, and it's a hybrid of two other kinds of basil. And it was a little too strong. It kind of had a camphor-y kind of a taste. So I just let it go to seed, and the bees really liked all the blossoms and stuff. But it was too strong taste.
It pickles well. It worked really well with okra. I did okra with his basil. Oh, it was delicious. I ate all the okra even though I made it for my roommate.
Yeah, I actually have Tulsi basil, but here we just use it for tea. I never thought that it's also a basil.
Put basil on my eggs in the morning when I do eggs. Just take some basil right out of the garden and just chop it up and put it on top of the eggs. Fried eggs.
Put it on top of summer tomatoes.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah.
When I'm cooking, my favorite is Thai basil
Caprese
because it's
salad.
so strong. You
Caprese
don't need very
salad.
much.
That's one of my favorites. Mozzarella, olive oil, basil, and tomatoes.
Have you ever made fresh mutts? It's like really easy.
You should do a cooking class then.
But all right.
The only problem with fresh sweet potatoes is they're a pain to cut.
Yeah. What was it? A trick if you put them in something cold, they get crisper and it's easier to cut? Turnips.
My mom has a question for Anubhumi. You guys got mangoes earlier, right? Than the season or something for pickling?
Sorry, what's the question?
Did you get you got mangoes? Did you pickle the mangoes or did you buy it already pickled?
No,
We pickled at home.
we pickled
You
at
pickled
home.
at home. Did you use green mango or ripe mango?
Raw mango.
Should they use green?
I know.
The kacha aam, carry.
My mom does it too, so she wanted to know.
Okay.
But she won't come onto the screen, so she's asking me, and then I ask you.
Okay.
Was she pickling?
So.
That's the most important question.
Currently, she is not pickling, but does she pickle in general? Yes.
Okay, so I have reached the top of my jar, and you do want to leave a little bit of headspace, which I don't currently have. So this is where using the handle of a spoon or the handle of your knife or the bougie pickle masher comes in handy. You just lean into that and put your body weight in it. And you
I
push.
wonder, I bet a lot of the people have the pepper grinders. I wonder if they can.
My only concern about the pepper grinder is that it's open on the bottom, so you're going to put stuffs in there.
Put a plastic bag around the bottom of your pepper grinder and then.
There you go.
Nancy, yours looks gorgeous. You've turned that into an
Ooh.
art.
Can you put it up again? I want to pin it.
Yeah, let's see it again. Cool. Nice.
Ooh, you managed to pack a lot in there.
Is this enough headspace?
Yes, yep. So the cool thing about mason jars is the rim, the big rim that it does right here is to let you know where the headspace needs to be.
Ah.
Is it any better wide mouth or not? I mean,
I'm pickling in narrow mouth jars, but I don't think they make, they're trying to phase out narrow mouth is what I've heard. So
I wonder why. I prefer wide mouth, but
I prefer narrow mouth because it's a lot easier to keep the pickles down and in the brine if the amount of out of the brine is a shorter shoulder. But it's entirely up to you. And as I said, you don't even have to use a mason jar. You can use any jar at all. So I usually do 1 jar of beautiful pickles and then 1 jar of just chunks.
so my grandfather lived to his late 80s, and he basically had in his fridge all the time a jar of like refrigerator pickles. He had cucumbers, tomatoes, carrots, onions, and anytime he needed a snack, he would just take a little of that and put it in a bowl.
Refrigerator pickles are made by taking vinegar and you're just basically brining your vegetables in vinegar.
Yep.
It gives you the flavor, but it doesn't give you the added nutritional value of using that probiotic and that living food. And it doesn't have the preservative value. So these Lactobacillus, we are encouraging them to move in, and they're going to live in our jars. And they are a food friend. And they're going to do some good work for us, such as preserving our food for us. So we don't need to refrigerate these pickles when they're done.
Does that mean you don't wash the vegetables really well because you want the bacteria on them?
Yeah, yeah. I washed it enough to get the dirt off, but that's it. We're not, no soaps, no cleaners. Looking for that here. And as I said, the reason that I sent you guys to wash your hands in the beginning was to wash off poop and peat, because we don't want that in our jars or in our food, not so much to get our hands sterile. We're not doing surgery.
My sister actually, when she was in med school, she did a test where she, scraped off her hands and did a bacterial growth before washing hands. Then she did it right after washing hands. Then she did it 5 minutes after washing hands with bacterial soap. And the worst bacterial growth was 5 minutes after washing hands with bacterial soap.
Yeah, that has been more formalized in the scientific literature. There have been studies now that show there is no 30-second rule or 10-second rule or 5-second rule. When you drop food on the floor, it's a 5-minute rule. You can eat food off the floor up until the point of 5 minutes. 5 minutes is the worst point at which the bacteria is going to colonize things.
Well, that's where the doctors scrub up and then they put on their gloves.
Yeah.
Is that enough headspace over here, or should I?
Yeah. If you can stick your thumb into the base of your nail, then you've got enough.
So you just need enough space on the top for liquid to completely cover you.
Yeah,
if stuff sticks out, it rots and.
Because we're going to add our pickling weights, and it's going to shove some things in different directions.
I'm gonna put in chat an invite to my foodie film travel soiree at 6:30. Anybody's interested? Come on by. Stop by. You never know who's going to be there. Anyway, I'll put the information in the chat.
You mean to show
Does
off
that mean
your
you're
pickles?
leaving, or?
No, I just thought I'd put it in there right now.
Oh, okay.
So if somebody's interested, you can copy it.
Because
People that are on the list already got a copy.
I've done that before where I was on 2 Zooms at the same time.
My God invented a second camera. Oh, sorry for those of you who are ahead of me. I promise your waiting will not be in vain.
I forgot, are we putting the spices on the bottom of the jar, or does it matter?
It doesn't matter. If you're ready for spices, you just add them.
Just add it on top? Okay.
They'll end up on the bottom any way you do it.
That's what I
So
figured.
you don't put it in the brine, you actually just put it in the jar.
Yes.
Just noticed I put some nail polish on here, so I gotta be back.
What?
Yeah, I got nail polish on my jar, my pickles.
Well, then
Well, that makes it so you mark it so that you know it's yours when you go to someone else's house for a potluck.
you know it's your jar.
What I do is I have a purple permanent marker that I mark stuff with.
There's also a book written in, well, I don't know, last 5 years maybe, on fermentation, but, you know, not a scientific book, but kind of just a popular book on fermentation.
Are you talking
And,
about by Sandor? I'm trying to remember his name.
Yeah, I forget too. But a lot of things are fermented that we don't think of as fermented. Like there's fermentation in a coffee process, for example, which you wouldn't normally think are related.
Sandor Katz.
Ginger beer is fermented. A lot of people don't realize
So
that.
if you're,
You can make your own
if you're
fermentation.
interested in fermentation in general, which I am, that's a good book.
There was
I need to figure out what spices to put with these with these turnips. Indian spices.
turmeric sounds really good.
I know I'll put some turmeric so there'll be a funny yellow color.
Let me look at my Indian cookbook and see if it says something for turnips.
So you can
Well, we've got experts right here.
me being me, I stuck my nose up at the tried and true recipe. I've never followed a recipe to this day.
My mom doesn't work with turnips, so
Yeah, and my cookbook covers, you know, all the major regions of India.
So here's a case of I have this much sweet potato left and my jar is full. So I'm going to mash it down and I'm going to be able to get that much sweet potato in.
I thought you just eat the rest of it.
Oh, we're picking it. So I have just gained at least a cup more space in the jar just by mashing. Don't be afraid to get real violent with your food. It is good for you.
I've got a gallon jar and it's almost full with only 2 turnips. Like-
Sounds like another candidate for the mashing. Get ready to-
Yeah, just
do you
like-
have fenugreek?
Let's see. Yes, I've never
I
used.
didn't see turnips mentioned in my Indian cookbook.
Okay, where did I see fenugreek?
What did yours say,
I just
Fred?
Here it is.
I didn't see turnips
I recently-
mentioned, not that you can't do it in my
Yeah,
Indian
it-
cookbook. Hold on, let me,
I recently found my bag of fenugreek and I had bought it, obviously for a recipe, and then never used it for the last 2 years.
It never expires.
So if you
If my
have,
mom says it never expires, so
How
Yeah.
much do you think should I put in there? This is
not too much.
So
'Cause
200
it's
it's
grams.
my Indian cookbook.
bitter and it can get pungent.
350 recipes from the region of India.
Mm.
'cause it's a gallon of turnips.
but also this is a great way to use spices that have
Sunita Baswani, she lives in Texas.
I'm not one of them.
Okay.
The vinegar, the lime, the
I
It's
knew.
very well done because it,
no
you know, it talks about all the different kinds of spices and the different kinds of beans and all the, you know,
Hmm.
it's
okay.
gives you a real background on Indian cooking, not just recipes. So, you know, what spices are used, all that sort of
I
stuff.
knew what spices you think I should put in my turnips.
What spices do you think is specifically in this turnip?
We take back the fenugreek. My dad said, do not do the fenugreek because if you do it blind, it could be very bitter and you're
Very
just gonna
bitter.
not like it.
Yeah, fenugreek is very bitter.
Very
Yeah.
strong.
Let me know.
I used fenugreek one time and my girlfriend almost drove me out of the house. She says, never use that again. I don't like it. So
Waiting for you guys to be ready to brine.
I think peppercorn might go well with turnip. Do you think we can also use fennel?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to create the fennel flavor in your
And-
pickles. But
And do we grind them? Do we grind them or we just put it?
not for
Stop.
this. The brining process is going to extract the flavor, outsides or insides.
Okay.
So-
And how much quantity we should use? Like the peppercorn, like how much should we put?
A 1/2 centimeter sized circle in the palm of your hand.
So otherwise known as a pinch.
Yeah. I'm trying to translate things internationally.
I forget what's
Yes,
a pinch is like you, and then what is it? A dab is the palm of your hand.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, you can actually look up a
Trying to
pinch, and
squeeze
I
off.
think they can tell you the actual measurement of a pinch.
So I don't want to leave anybody behind. Now is the time to stuff things in as much or as little spice as you want to give it. You're going to shove it in around the edges.
Hey, there's Amy.
And
You
you can-
snuck in.
Can we use whole cumin as a spice?
Yes, and I have. It's fine. You don't have to grind it up.
Cumin seed.
Yeah, I had 6 turnips, and they're not going to all fit in my gallon jar.
There are my jars, and there is my headspace. This one's got a little more headspace than this one does. But we'll both do. I am not adding any spices to this because I'm lazy. People like my pickles just as they are. And then after this, we're going to turn it from dry to wet. We're going to add our brine, which is going to be with this water we've got sitting out.
And the jar need not be full, right? If it is half empty, it's okay.
If half empty is fine. You don't want it too full, but empty is good. You'd much rather have empty than full. Unless you're using the US wide mouth mason jar, this will much rather have full than empty.
Sorry, unless you are using?
Jen, could you repeat that whole section? Because we didn't hear any of it.
Sure. Half empty jars are fine unless you are using specifically a wide mouth mason jar. In that case, half empty is not fine because your food is going to find a way around the jar or around your pickling weight to get up. And it's a lot easier to do a full jar, which is why I don't like wide mouth jars. I will pickle in, as I have shown. I pickled in a plastic soup tub to do half empty rather than a wide mouth mason jar. The only wide mouth mason jar I brought for demonstration purposes is this one, and it is, as you can see, all the way full to the top. Okay, by show of hands, or as I like to do with school children, put your finger on your nose if you have your spices in and you're ready to move on to getting them wet.
Not me, I'm behind.
You're ready, Ice Cream Jen's ready, Nancy's ready. Howard is apparently not doing this at all. Brian looks perplexed. Amy's giving me a thumbs up. And I can't see Or on his two cameras. He's ready as well. Okay.
Oh, I forgot, I have 2 cameras.
One of them's too far away for me to see well. Okay, so we have 3 or 4 cups of water. Also put as 3/4 or 1 full liter or quart. They're close enough. If you do not have that and you need to go whoops and go get some water from the tap right now, just know that this is going to increase your pickling time, but it's not a problem. You can do that right now. Otherwise, the next step is to take our salt, our iodine-free salt, and a tablespoon measure, which internationally is 15 milliliters.
Beer bottle works really good.
Oh, beer bottle for mashing. There you go. So 15 milliliters of salt is going to go into the water. And that is how we're going to make our brine.
Into 1 liter of water.
Into 1 liter of water, yes. 15 milliliters of salt, 1 liter of water. Or 15 milliliters of salt into 3 cups of water, or 15 milliliters of salt into 3/4 of a liter of water, anywhere in between 3 and 4 cups of water. And it is okay if you have too much, like a heaping tablespoon of salt. You're not getting specific here because unlike baking, the ratios don't matter. Other than that we need a minimum, and then you just stir to dissolve.
So how long does it extend it if you have iodized salt?
Doubles the time.
Doubles the time, huh?
And then you're going to say, well, what's the time? And the answer is, I don't know. It depends on how your bacteria are feeling. You're growing a colony of living things. So sometimes the bacteria are fast bacteria and sometimes the bacteria are slow bacteria. And I will teach you how to tell when your pickles are done.
I am being very experimental with spices. Do you think I can add cardamom and cinnamon?
Oh, nice. That's going to be tasty. But just
But
know,
I wouldn't put too much because both of those are really strong flavored, no?
I would write it on the outside of the jar because in 6 months you won't remember the combination. So I would write like on a piece of tape or something, oh, this has got this and this and this. Because otherwise
You think?
you'll taste it, and if it's wonderful,
Yep.
you won't know, and if it's terrible, you won't know.
I label my pickles. Here's another jar of pickles. I label them not only with that, but an expected due by date. And then I check them at the due by date. So, everybody's had enough stir. Yes, Monsi.
I completely missed the ratios of the salt to the water because I was pouring water and then things were happening and there's a bug in my water. So
Either 3 or 4 cups of water.
yeah, it's 4 cups.
Excellent. And
Oh, so we're allowed to put bugs in it?
No, not.
Extra protein.
No.
What's the bug doing in your water? The backstroke?
Apparently, no, it died. Okay. I have 4 cups of water.
1 tablespoon.
Thank you.
We don't have to heat it, right? The water?
Nope.
You only have to eat the bug.
I think
So again, I'm
almost.
waiting for fingers on noses, letting me know you're ready. Your
I'm
salt
almost
is
getting all
dissolved in
6
your
of
water.
them in
Stirred
here,
it,
but
stirred it. Boomy's ready. Amy's got her back to me. Ice cream Jen's ready. Howard is not pickling. Fred's left.
Howard, are you getting pickled? Is that
Don't have anything to pickle. I'm waiting for the next part where Jen takes the pickles and turns it into a fresh cucumber so you can enjoy fresh
Everything
cucumbers.
Howard has is already pickled and canned.
already
He's, got nothing,
canned?
he's had nothing fresh for months now.
Yes, Jen, I'm waiting for the next magical part, please.
Great time for those figs.
Oh, God.
Pickled figs are good.
So I got 5.5 of my turnips in here, but I'm not going to get 6.
Or is getting feisty with his turnip jars. See, this is, don't be afraid to smash because smashing helps the pickling. If you smash it a lot.
Hulk smash. What is
If you
it?
don't need to smash though, don't be afraid not to smash. It's one of those like, you're gonna cram a lot in. You want the lot that you've crammed to be special.
Do the smash the turnip. Do the smash the turnip.
And then when you have got your brine done, you've dissolved your salt in your water and it's all nice and clear, you're just gonna pour
Look
it.
at you got the whole gang.
No, man, we have to see the house party that's happening at 4:30 in the morning in India.
I want to know, are they going to break out into song and dance?
Yeah,
Boomy.
we have not slept actually. So the house party, it's last night's house party.
It was a CS meet that we had last night, and we guys were together. We didn't sleep, and then today morning we are here for the playing session.
They're
So
dancing.
the party has going all night long. That's amazing,
Yeah.
Boomy. You have the most craziest parties.
Oh, wait.
Day minimum.
Pour your brine in until your topmost piece of food tries to float. That's how you'll know you have enough brine. And if your topmost piece of food doesn't try and float at any point, I'm so sorry.
All right, let's see here.
And the goal here was to make too much brine. So if you have extra brine, that's good. We made too much. That means we're not desperately not having enough water.
And then I need some turmeric. Do you think fresh turmeric or ground powder?
Use up the ground powder. This is a great way to use up spices that have gone off with, or have depotented.
All right.
Let me know when your pickles are wet and you're ready to weight them down.
You said if none go up, you're just sorry, right? It's just the thing that's.
It means you've, in your case, Monty, because you did spears, they're probably not going to go up because they're all holding each other down. You just want to get them covered.
And you said just above.
Yes,
Okay.
just above the food. Usually that's shown by horizontal pieces are trying to float away.
I've done too much. I'll figure it out.
If nothing's trying to float away, you've got a nice tight pack, and that's good.
Ooh,
Since we are using, I think, rock salt, I'm not sure if entire thing is dissolving in the water. There's some residue at the bottom of the salt.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah.
Is that okay?
Is that fine?
Shaken. Wait, you're only doing one jar, right?
We are making one jar with
Yeah,
one.
just make sure that residue makes it into the jar, even if a lot of the liquid doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
It's a lot harder if you were making more than one jar, but since you're not, we're good. We're on easy street.
Ooh. My jar looks so beautiful.
So at this point, your vegetables should be surrounded by beautiful, clear liquid, plus or minus any salt that refuses to dissolve. And you should be feeling pretty good about this. What you don't realize is that food is planning on escaping because there will be bubbles generated very soon by the Lactobacillus that are going to start farting your food to try and make it out of the lid. So our next step is going to be weighing it down. I use, as Monty has already seen, these very bougie pickle weights. They are specifically designed to fit in my jars and hold down my pickles. And they come with a little handle, which is really handy. You just put them in and plop them in, and then they hold your food down under that water level. However, you can also use teeny tiny little dishes, little saucers, rocks, anything you got. And if you don't have anything at all, you can fill up a shower cap or a plastic bag with water and shove that in instead. Yeah, I've done this, Monty.
So you couldn't just do a canning lid and a screen? Yeah, because I guess it wouldn't be under the moisture.
No, you want it under the moisture. You want the bottom part of your weight to be under the top part of your moisture. I'm gonna try and show this on camera, but using a clear weight is very hard. So my moisture level is
awesome. It's perfect.
Bottom, it is a canning weight designed to be perfect. This is why people spend money on them. So the top part of my moisture is here. The bottom part of my weight is down there. You want the bottom part of your canning weight under the moisture because it needs to hold your food down.
Because anything that sticks out basically rots, right?
Anything that sticks out rots. You got it. You got it. And then once you have that, it's just, the last step is just you put your lid on. And at this point, you have decided whether you are going to be a burper or a loose chyme yeast host.
Okay, explain that.
Burping your jar is when your jar.
Oh, I thought you meant for me. I like burping.
Put your lids on, and then you just store it out of direct sunlight for 2 to 3 weeks. So I would write on your jar a 3-week date from now and go check them then. And I will tell you how to check them in the next segment of our adventure.
You said in a dark place?
Out of direct sunlight. So it doesn't have to be dark. It just has to be nowhere where the sun is going to use its awesome power of disinfecting, because we don't want it disinfected. We want that lactobacillus to live. So, dark is fine. You want to put it under your sink? Great. You want to put it inside of a box where no sunlight has ever lived? Great. You want to put it in the back of your closet? Fine. But you want to put it on a counter which gets in the direct sunlight at any point? It is so good.
right, now I have to try to come up with some kind of weight for my gallon jar. I was actually using this jar because I don't have a lid for it.
If you do not have a lid for your gallon jar and you have a bag, or take a bag and put the bag into the gallon jar like you are lining a trash can, and then put your weight on top of the bottom of the bag and use the bag as a simultaneous lid and airlock. This is my contribution to the world of food preservation. Nobody had thought to do that before I recommended it.
Really?
Yeah, and if you don't have a bag, use a plastic shower cap. That's what I prefer to use. It works really, really well. Yeah, I was house sitting somewhere, and they wanted me to use up 2 refrigerators worth of vegetables in a week. And this homegirl can't do that. I mean, I can eat a lot of veggies, but I can't eat that many veggies. So I pickled most of them for them. And they only had jars that had no lids. So I ended up using shower caps that I found that they had in their guest room to cap their jars for them, and then left them instructions on how to care for their pickles. They were so happy they gave me a tip. But that's it. You just wait 3 weeks and your pickles will be done. It's as simple as that.
And are you going to do this part of the cooking show where you show, and here's some cake I've prepared earlier for the camera?
Yes.
Yes.
So here are some completed pickles. I have sauerkraut with red cabbage, so it's come out pink, which is good because any red food, the thing that makes it red is actually a pH indicator. And so when it turns pink, that means it's gone acidic. If it turns blue or green, that means it's basic and it's bad, and throw it out. But you want it to be pink. Pink is good. Here are some pickled tomatoes, onions, and mushrooms. But I shook them up, so it's got the mushroom schmutz is making it cloudy. It is not, your pickles won't be this cloudy. And here are some pickled watermelon rinds.
How does yours so clear? Mine came out almost pink.
Watermelon
I think mine
rinds?
has, yeah.
Okay, so I absolutely cut off any pink of the watermelon before I put it in. And I cut them into.
And well, and then I mean, I cooked it, so I mean,
Oh,
this
no,
is
no,
actually canned.
No, I
So
picked.
yeah, it's probably the sugar caramelized a little bit.
Yeah, I pickled the raw watermelon rinds. So that is.
So yeah, it's slightly brown. They're really good.
So the next question
texture is
that's
weird
usually
though.
asked is, how do you know your pickles are done? There are 3 ways to know your pickles are done. 1, you eat them and you like the flavor. It's not going to get you sick to eat the pickles before they're done. Number 2, if it's a red food or a food with a pH indicator dye, which this is like the liquid. I don't know if you guys can see the liquid here is what's pink. It'll create a pink liquid. Or 3, pH test it. You want something on the acidic side. And now I am going to call out Monsi because I know she has a degree in this. Monsi, can you tell us what pHs are acidic?
Below 4. Is that the question? Is that the
Isn't
answer?
it below 7, 0 to 7?
0 to 7.
Good answer, Amy.
Because the ones above 7 are base, which I never understood because I would think a lower number would be a base number and a higher number would not. But the higher numbers are
Not how
base.
science. It's not how
The
science
lower
works.
numbers are acid.
Can you get pH strips that we used to use 100 years ago?
Yeah, strips tend to work
Yes,
better than a pH probe, but me being me, I used what I had. If you don't have either pH strips or a pH probe and you don't trust your tongue to tell you whether you like what you have, you can also boil red cabbage
Oh, by Chatty Alderson.
and then use some cabbage juice and mix it with some of your liquid.
But Jen, what do you usually, do you just hope that it falls below 7, or do you try to do it more at like a 5-4 range?
I aim for 4 or 3. When I want my finished pickles finished, I want a 3.
Yeah. So I recommend if you are going to use a pH indicator, definitely try to go around 4 or below.
6,000-foot
For,
level in the San Bernardino Mountains. Renuka, a 130-pound Alaskan Malamute, rules both Chatty
But
and Bill.
if it
as
doesn't
baby
go bad,
dogs. She grew up in Michigan and can't remember when she
The
didn't.
thing is, it can, if it's closer to a neutral pH of 7, it can go bad.
ah,
I have had my pH meter sitting in solution for a while, and I got to recalibrate it back to 7. Luckily, I have the stuff to recalibrate it back to 7 with me because I travel smart.
You mean water?
Yeah, my water here is going to be slightly acidic, but I have pH 7 standard with me.
so you said I could just boil a purple cabbage leaf, and then pour some of the liquid in there and see if it turns like green?
The other way around, pour some of your pickling liquid into the purple cabbage leaves, because if it's not ready, you don't want to have introduced any new whoozy-whatsy. 1 point calibration. Okay.
I knew there had to be some kind of scientific stuff.
It's how you know your pickles are done. So for certain things, it's going to be hard to tell because, like pickled garlic tastes exactly like non-pickled garlic.
Jen, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I'm using these glass shots that I had as the weight on top to put everything under, but my herbs and my spices are floating on the surface. Is that good? Is that bad?
That's fine. Your glass is going to ideally try and hold them under, but your herbs and your spices aren't going to make that much of a difference. They're not going to bite.
And as they get wetter, they probably sink more too, right?
They're going to end up at the bottom anyway.
You can get the pH strips at Amazon.
Yeah, but then you're eating the EPA strips. I mean, aren't you?
No. You do like this Jen is. You're just taking it and putting it on there for testing.
Yep. Okay, there's my 7, and where's my 4?
Yeah, I've never done that part. I was just like...
Tasting, I think, is the best thing to do.
Well, I always just basically let it sit for a week and then started eating it. Although my pickled eggs, they've been surprisingly a long time.
Yeah, proteins are going to take a lot longer than non-proteins. Oh.
We're gonna go get some dinner somewhere. But thanks for letting us hang out for a bit here.
You're not going to join us for eating pickles right now?
If we find a place that has pickles, then we will join you in spirit. Anu and Boomy, it's nice to see you again.
Hi, Amy.
Hi. We're gonna go find dinner somewhere.
They stayed up all night till 4:30 in the morning. Just
crazy.
Soon we'll go for breakfast.
Yeah. Maybe you guys would want to do a cooking class too, huh?
Mm-hmm.
We got disconnected.
We will let you know.
I don't know if you want to do it 4:30 in the morning, but
4th meal. That's great.
That was great. Good job.
We've got, hold them.
Yeah.
We got some 5 jars like these.
ooh.
We made, we pickled cucumbers and watermelon grinds and a sweet potato.
Yeah.
Nice.
What did you put in your watermelon?
I put some basil.
Gonna make delicious ones.
basil and one more herb I put cinnamon.
Is this your first time making watermelon pickle?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Whenever we pickle in India, we mostly use oil as the medium, never water. So this is going to be our first.
So now, in 3 weeks, if you are going to ship your pickles anywhere, you're going to want to can them. Because canning stops the pickling process and stabilizes the food. To can, you're going to need a pot that is at least big enough for your jar to fit in, plus about half of another of your jars to fit in this pot, because you're not going to have your jar on the bottom. And by the way, this would be a good time to look at BCAM, because I'm giving you a good feel of it.
oh. So do you think I could put curry powder in?
It doesn't have salt. Some curry powders in the US have salt. And then they would have iodized salt.
You want both of them or just one?
Hmm?
I pinned both cameras.
Just look at camera B for the moment. When you do pickle, or when you do canning, you don't want your jars to be on the bottom of the pot because they will get too hot and they will crack. So you want something that will lift them off the bottom of the pot. Any sort of steaming rack that you might have for making steamed vegetables will do. This is out of my Instant Pot. And this is a 8-quart pot that I have, and that's for a 6-quart pot. And then you're going to fill your canning pot up with water, normal water from the tap. Nothing special here. I'm going to put this down so that I can do it.
Well, it's better to get hot water, right?
You can fill it with hot water if you want. It doesn't really make much of a difference in terms of how long it takes to boil, unless you're going to fill it with already boiled water.
I use my electric kettle when I want to kind of get the water going, because I have an electric stove also, and it's real slow at boiling water.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing this on the gas stove.
So yeah, so I take my electric kettle, I put the pot on the big burner, electric burner, and turn it on, and then I just add the kettlefuls of water to it to try and make it go faster.
Do you think there's any spice that you wouldn't add to your pickle? I mean, you said you don't want two separate strong spices at the same time. But
Hygiene is a no. Be very careful about adding citrus. So back to camera A, I'm going to put this pot over the big burner, and I'm going to turn it on, put it on medium high, and just set it to boil. But that's not all, folks. That's not all, because we still have our pickles that we have to deal with. And we cannot just plunk these in. There's a process for preserving, and that process involves taking our pickling juice and boiling our pickling juice separately. So I've got a pot here, it's empty, and it's gonna get the pickle juice in it. I have a strainer here with teeny tiny holes that will let the pickle juice out, but keep the pickle solids in. I'm gonna take my pickles. They smell delicious.
man, I totally need to get one of those things to push the stuff in the bottle.
If you can see on camera B, there are teeny tiny dots of white here. Those teeny tiny dots of white are the chyme yeast I was talking about that you'll get if you just loosely cover the lid. Again, they won't hurt you. Some people just think it looks icky. But I'm gonna dump that into my strainer. Oh, and you can see some of what I've pickled. There are the mushrooms, there's the onion piece, there's some garlic. I gave away most of the rest of this jar of pickles already.
Mushrooms and peas, that sounds yummy.
I'm going to strain it into the solids stay in and the liquids go out. So liquids are going out. Solids are staying in. And we are going to bring this lovely juice that we have now drained out, our pickle brine, our pickle juice, to a full boil. It doesn't have to boil for very long, but it does have to boil.
How often do you think you make pickles?
Once or twice a month. I give away a lot of them. So I do a lot of packing for sending places. So now a watched pot never boils. We can talk and do fun things while we wait for these waters to boil.
I guess I missed the step of this juice you got from, is this like starter or something? Like you got juice from existing pickles?
Yes, yeah. So I'm telling you, in 3 weeks, if you were going to mail me your pickles, Fred, I was going to mail you my pickles. You would need to can them in order to stop the process, because as I said, you've got a living colony inside these pickles, and the colony is farting, and the farts will explode the jar. So
No, I got that part. I just don't know what is the pickle juice that's on the stove. No, you're boiling pickle.
Yeah, it's the
What
liquid
is-
from your pickles. The fluid that's in your jar of pickles. You need to bring that to a boil, but you don't want to boil your pickle solids because that'll make them mushy. You still want to preserve the crispiness in that, but you do need to bring the liquid to a boil in order to kill all of that lactobacillus bacteria so that it doesn't eat and fart and crack your jar in transit.
And in the second bowl, you are just boiling water.
Yes. I'll show you with camera B. This is going to be my canning pot. We are going to hermetically seal our pickles here so that they're shelf stable indefinitely. And then in here, this is our pickle liquid, which we just sort of made by pouring brine into our pickles, and now we're going to make by leaving it alone for 3 weeks. This is getting boiled to sterilize it.
So basically you're killing the bacteria and then canning it to stop it from continuing to ferment.
Yeah, and the reason we have to separately boil the liquid as opposed to use the heat from the canning process is because we will not be able to process it in the heat long enough to really stop the fermentation, the lactobacillus colonies, without turning our pickle solids into mush, and nobody wants a mushy pickle.
But as you said, most of us probably aren't going to be shipping our stuff, so we can skip this step.
You can absolutely skip this step. But I was recruited to do this class by Orr, who wanted to include canning.
Oh, I understand. I just wanted to.
Yeah, a lot of people wanted to know about canning, period.
Yeah, so this is a good primer on canning in general. In general, with canning, if you can things, you are going to have a 2-step process. 1 step for hermetically sealing your jars, your cans. And
Did people ever use a pressure cooker in canning?
you can, but you have to use a pressure canner. There are no electric pressure cookers that produce a high enough heat to be absolutely safe for food.
Okay.
That will
So
kill
you'd have to be at a big scale of production or something.
Yeah. So I recommend water bath canning if you've got if you're not going to do this for a very long time. The good news is pickle liquids, it boils really, really quickly. Can you see we're already at a simmer?
Yeah.
It boils super quickly, the pickle liquids. So while we're there, I'm going to quickly take you through. We've got our solids in our brown strainer pot, and this is the fun and artistic part. You get to decide what jar you want to use, and I am using commercial packaged salsa jars. You can use any jar at all. You don't have to get a fancy jar. In fact, I like the single lid design that they just sell in the store. And you're going to put your solids in your jar.
Then if we skip canning, then we will keep on have to farting the jars, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So here are my solids. that is crappy light. Hold on. Camera B. Here are my solids. You can see I've got a bunch of mushrooms in there. I've got some tomatoes. I've got some onions on the side. That's the white stuff. I'm just gonna dump them in my jar. And then we're gonna put the liquid back in the jar, seal the lid, and toss it in the canning pot when the canning pot comes to a boil. And
Yeah, I tend to, when I can, a lot of times just can like 4 jars and that's it.
yeah. And here on camera B, you can see there's some seeds. I used seeds as my spice. They're going back in here. And then you're gonna wanna bring enough when you do this process, you're gonna end up with more liquid than you had to start with. And I don't know how.
But isn't the whole point of eating fermented food is for the probiotics, right?
Yes, yeah. This is if you wanted to ship somebody this for the flavor. It's not going to work for probiotics. That's why I
So
say
pretty much any pickles we buy, because they're sealed, they've canned it, right?
Yeah. The pickles you buy from the store are no longer live. Their probiotics are dead and gone. Howard, so store-bought pickles are no, yep, exactly. Store-bought pickles are
Another
not,
argument for making your own.
yep. It was a live food, it is now a dead food. They cannot sell with our food rules. However, if you buy from the farm stand on the corner or your neighbor, then you might have live food. Just ask.
So what you have done now is like you have mixed, you have again mixed the boiled liquid and the solid in a
Put
jar.
the boiling liquid back in here. I'm gonna cap it and I'm gonna stick it in the canning pot, but I gotta wait until the canning pot boils.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, when I normally can stuff, I cook the stuff and then I put it in there, but then it ends up getting mushy.
Yeah, that's why we are doing this as a 2-step process.
So I mean, a similar thing when I can half peaches, I basically just stuff the peaches in the jar and then heat up boiling water and pour it into the jar and then can them. So the peaches aren't cooked. Well, I mean, I guess they cook a little bit in the boiling water, but
So
as you
Jen,
pour it
are
in
you
the
saying
jar.
the goal is to keep things crispy, like a crisp dill pickle?
Yep, that's the goal.
So
I'd be concerned of cracking the jar if it poured boiling water into it.
Mm-hmm. That is a concern. That is why I like to use either mason jars, which they will not crack with thermal, or I like to use jars that have already been used to hot pack a substance at a commercial facility, because they also, I mean, by the sheer existence of them on the grocery store shelves, they will not crack. They've already been used for that. So salsa jars work really, really well. This French onion dip jar is the same as the salsa jar. And then there's a commercial jam jar. Jams are hot packed as well. So I stick with those as opposed to jars that have not been used to seal foods that came in at a boiling temperature. And I'm trying right now to think of what those jars would be. I can't come up with any.
I like the idea of having the small jars for somebody that, you know, you
Well,
live
peanut
by
butter
yourself
jars.
and you don't.
Oh, peanut butter jars. There you go. Yeah, so I have small jars specifically because the height of my pot is such that this doesn't fit in properly. It would put too much over the rim.
Yeah.
So I have to use a smaller jar. I have to decant into a smaller jar.
I've been using my Instapot. You can do 4 jars in it, but only one model of Instapot, they say you can do canning.
Yes.
You put it on do you put it on pressure cook?
Not
Pressure cook? No?
No, I just,
It's not pressure canning. There is the, excuse me. There's the pro model of Instant Pot, and you can, it's the, 8-quart? It's the big one. And the USDA has certified it for canning, but only for water bath canning, not for pressure canning. You still need a pressure canner for pressure canning.
Okay.
You would use, and just for those who are curious, you would pressure can meat or other protein. If or low acid foods, which pickles are not. This lactobacillus bacteria is turning it into lactic acid, so your pickles are a high acid food. But a low acid food would be something like beans or unpickled potatoes.
Deer meat.
There you would want a pressure canner, which given my diet, I never want a pressure canner.
Now I water bath my tomatoes, but I add lemon juice to bring them up.
Your tomatoes are acidic as is. They're bringing the
Well,
acid.
the tomatoes I buy are that the farmer sells are low acid ones. They're
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I recommend not having a pressure canner, but making friends with somebody who has a pressure canner. That is the best way to go. But yeah, you can can like chicken soup in a pressure canner. So now we wait.
Well, I just do broth because I mean, people buy broth and it's like $4, $5 for a quart of it.
I freeze my broth.
Easy.
I'm lazy that way. I freeze my
Before adding the solids back with the boiled liquid, do we need to let the liquid cool down?
No.
No.
No, because you're about to toss it in more boiling water anyway.
Sorry?
No, because you're about to put it in more boiling water anyway.
Okay. But that won't make it mushy.
And the process of it cooling causes the vacuum seal.
Right.
Yeah. At the very end, you will take it out and it will cool, and then that little suction on. While we wait for a watch clock.
Like this one is an old one, and it's still got the little.
I take you through the anatomy of, this is called a lug lid when it is a single lid, and then the ones that are two pieces are unsurprisingly called a two-piece lid, where it's got a lid and a ring. That's a two-piece lid. I don't like them. A lot of people like them. I don't like them. I like a lug lid, which is a just single-piece lid. And a lug lid has, around the edge of it, a thermoplastic. And this thermoplastic, when exposed to boiling water, will soften and be able to form whatever form it wants. So when you take your jar out of the canning pot after the water bath, after it's been processed, process is the home canning term for we have sterilized things. Then you're gonna turn that lid just a little bit more to really crank it down, and that imprints the rim of the jar into this thermoplastic and creates that airtight seal. So then as the hot liquid cools, it takes up a smaller volume and it pulls a vacuum. So it'll pull the safety button down in and cause that ping or that.
One mistake I used to do is I used to tighten that ring on so much that it would actually compress the rubber so much that it wouldn't create a seal later.
Yeah, so the two-piece lids have a ring and then a lid, and this lid has a rubber around the outside, which is supposed to act like the thermoplastic. It's a natural rubber, and this is a case of better living through chemistry. The thermoplastic actually does the job better than the rubber does. But you don't want the lid on too tight before while it's processing, because you want air to be able to escape. So you put it in with a loose lid. By positive pressure, the contents of the jar are not going to suck any of your water from your water bath in. It's going to push air out, and then you pull it out and crank it down.
Yeah, because that was my mistake when I first canned. I was like, why is it failing? And then I read somewhere that you have to do it loose on there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know why.
Air can't go out. There's no chance for a vacuum. You want the air to escape so that you can have a vacuum later. But yeah, the people who like the rubber lids, they swear by them, but I promise you this thermoplastic is a better performer.
Yeah, I've been trying to get, so like my friend who has a canning business, all of theirs are like one solid piece like this.
Yeah.
So it, that's, and they just do these little bottles. They do jams and they do pickles, and they sell these for $8 a piece.
Lug lids are the way to go. I'm gonna can my
Yeah, and all those mason jars, they always are 2 pieces, and I always kind of wondered why they were like that.
Because you expect it at this point. Mason sells the Atlas Mason Jar Company and the Ball and the Carr Mason Jar Company, which are the same one. They sell lug lids. They just give you the 2-piece ones because that's what you expect.
Well, wasn't it like originally you would throw away the inside and replace it each time?
Yeah.
Oh, I get it. That was the reason.
And
But-
so it was cheaper to do.
Dishwashers, so that's not a problem. Also, the lids are made out of the 2-piece lids are made out of a material that rusts, whereas your commercial lug lid is not. We live in the future. It's all about marketing. That's why they give you the 2-piece lids.
So yeah, I mean this right here that I had my my watermelon pickles in, you know, this was a commercially bought bottle of pickled asparagus.
Yeah.
And so you can see it's Italian. It was Italian. But yeah, I mean, I pickled this 3 years ago and I just opened it today. Well, I pickled and canned it.
The 2-piece lids do have their value though in this. Like if you want, they make many inserts for mason jar lids that you can put in instead of the disc, the flat.
So you don't have to burp.
Yeah, I have an airlock on mine, so I don't have to burp. I did my first ever pickles. I burped them for like a week, and then I went, screw it, I'll deal with chyme yeast, and never have had a problem since. When you put the chyme yeast into your liquids boiling pot for canning, if you do this, if you're sending it somewhere else, which I've done a lot of lately. In this pandemic, a lot of people have asked me to ship them some pickles. Then the chyme yeast denatures in that process, and it's not even an issue. So I am not afraid of chyme yeast. I'm not grossed out by its existence. I do not think something has gone wrong, but there are people who have this appearance thing, and so I felt the need to warn you guys so you're not like, oh my God, it's mold. It's not mold. If it's white and it's on there and it's dots or whatever, it's chyme yeast.
Yeah, well, growing up, we had the 3-gallon crock. And it had the stone that went in there, but around the edge, there was always, you take the stone off and there was always like a little layer of, I don't know, it looked like mold or fungus.
Yeah, that would be your chyme yeast because it is a fungus, but it's a human-safe fungus. Another thing to note, though I didn't see anybody doing it, if you use natural stone as your pickling weight, when you open it, your stone is going to look furry because the stone is just acting as a site for those salt crystals to crystallize the excess salt in your brine. And I've seen a lot of people go, oh my God, it's mold. And then I'm like, lick it. Lick it. Lick the mold? Are you crazy? I'm like, lick it. And they're like, and they lick it. They're like, it tastes like salt. That's because it is.
So it's just because the rock, no matter how smooth it seems, has little holes in it.
Yeah, has little pores.
So
So
all right.
my pot of water, and I'm going to show you on camera B, is coming to a simmer. And so I'm going to call it good enough.
Oh, there it is.
Yep, good enough to start putting that jar in. So I'm now going to decant the liquid from here, from my liquid pot, into my jar. I wish my big pot wasn't in the way. Maybe we can swap places. Hold on.
Your pickle liquid was also on simmer till now?
Yeah. I brought it to a full boil and then I reduced it to a simmer while we were waiting for this moment. Ha, swapping pot places. So I'm now going to pour my pickle liquid back into my pickles. I'm going to cap it loosely. Not even finger tight, just loosely, because I want the air in my pickle jar to be able to get out when I put it in the water bath. I'm going to put it in the water bath to process for 10 minutes, no more, because then you start getting mushy pickles, but no less, because then who knows what nasty bacteria might grow in there, because at this moment, this pickle liquid is no longer protective. So it is boiled, we've killed the chyme yeast, we've killed the Lactobacillus bacteria, it is no longer protective. So we have to do 10 minutes, and the goal is not to do more than 10 minutes. And you'll hear it when you move the pickle liquid around in your thing, you will hear it going. That is because of its high salt content. Oh, hi, you are hot. This was not a good idea to reach over a hot burner to do that. Reach next to a hot burner to do that. I'm gonna fill it up with liquid to the same point that I normally fill it with liquid. Take my lid and a hot mitt, because that is now boiling hot on the outside of the jar. And I'm going to put the lid on loosely. And getting it just right is an art. And then I'm going to take my tongs, as it is boiling hot, and I'm going to lower it in to my processing vessel, to the bottom of the processing vessel, where it is now. I'm going to switch you guys over to look at camera B, where it is now under the water. There is water on top of it, and you see those bubbles.
French onion pickles.
You see those bubbles coming out? That's why we put the lid on.
Oh, wow, yeah.
That's what's going to draw that vacuum. And now I'm going to set a timer.
But then won't the water go inside?
Nope, because it is positive pressure.
Okay.
All right.
And my timer is going for 10 minutes, and we wait.
You want to cover anything else before I turn the recording off?
I don't have any other topics, but feel free to open it up for Q&A while I simmer the liquid for my pickles. I'm gonna can that
All right. Does anybody have any questions before I turn the recording off and we can just, I don't know, eat pickles together?
Recording on for another 10 minutes, just in order to be able to let people see how we finish the canning.
Okay. So you're doing it with another type of pickles? I always made fun of my mom reusing jars. I always thought that was, I don't know, that we were poor. And then once I had enough money, I would start buying, you know, literally the fresh lid, I would replace it.
If you look at the B cam, you can see that there's still occasionally little bubbles coming out of the side of that French onion lid.
So there was no problem with my mom reusing, just as long as she was using the right kind of jars.
Yep.
Huh. All right, I'm going to go apologize to my mom.
Tell her you love her.
I mean, I always thought my mom was just super cheap, and once I had enough money, I'd start buying her real canning jars. I thought I was being really nice, but
I put out an all call to my friends to give me their salsa jars, because in the US, the salsa jar is the perfect size to fit in my Instant Pot. And if you turn an Instant Pot, I have a 6-quart Instant Pot, and if you put the steam rack in and turn the Instant Pot on simmer, you can simmer it for a half an hour at a time. It'll take a full hour, and you can water bath can that way without having to put the lid on and do the steam canning.
I happen to have, I think it's an 8 or a 10 quart, and I can fit a full jar in it. That's why I bought it. But yeah, I can surprise, well, mostly I just do tomatoes and green beans and broths. I do a lot of broths. But, all right. Should I bring back the poll again, or you guys just want to tell me what you thought of canning now that we're done?
Have the chance to make pickles. The hardest part is going to be ignoring these techniques.
Yeah, because I mean, originally the majority of people said they thought it was very difficult or right in the middle. 60% of the people said neither difficult nor easy, right in the middle. Only one said very easy, and that was Jen. So.
Well, I learned, as I mentioned before, before everybody showed up, because I'm hypertensive, I try and eat low salt, and I was pleased to find out that you can take your kimchi or what, you can rinse it off and reduce the amount of salt and still enjoy the flavor of it. So before I was kind of shying away from pickling because of all the, you know, brine and all that, but it turns out, I guess it's okay.
Yeah, you
So
can
I learned something there.
Now, do you ever just pickle stuff like you're like, this vegetable is about ready to get thrown away?
Yep, that is in fact the majority of where my pickling comes from. I pickle things that are just moments away from being bad. Not for nothing, those make the most delicious pickles. For whatever reason, they pickle so much better than anything else. They have the more active pickle culture, and you will see, although you can't, none of my finished pickles show it anymore, and my starting pickles haven't gotten there yet, but your pickles will start bubbling inside. There will be so many bubbles, and that's the sign of your lactobacillus eating and farting as they do. They're going to eat some of the starches and some of the sugars out of your vegetables, which also helps make them that pickly sort of crunchy, but also sort of soft thing that they have going on. That because compared to a fresh hard cucumber, your pickle, your pickle when you bite into it, it's a little softer. So that you get so many more bubbles with the lactobacillus when you have food that you're like, oh, you can't make it another day. I have to pickle you today. And that's why I keep my pickling salt on hand, and I will just pop out those pickles.
Have you used pickling lime?
No, because that's a base. Lime is always a base, and I prefer lactobacillus or acidic pickles instead. I don't like base.
So I recently was given a jar of someone who made cinnamon apple pickles. And they literally taste like gummy bears.
Oh, interesting.
But they use the pickling lime to make them really crunchy. And it's like a 6-day process to make the whole thing. But at the end, you know, you just basically have little pieces of cucumber and that are really crunchy, and then they taste like.
And say that sounds not as much like fermented pickles as just like cooked pickles.
Correct.
I don't like.
But I mean,
pickles.
I have been unable to get pickling lime. Since it was like a month and a half ago, they gave me a jar of it, and they gave me their grandma's recipe. That was their first time making it, but I've been unable to get pickling lime to do it.
So here's my second. You can hear it sputtering because of all the salt that was in there. This is my second jar of pickles. I'm doing the watermelon rinds.
Here's the polling results. Everybody thought it got easier, Jen.
It's because the hardest part is cutting it into pieces, putting it in the jar. Actually, you guys don't. The hardest part is going to be leaving it alone for 3 weeks and not touching it.
I want to share something at this point. I used to do brine fermentation for Indian gooseberries without realizing that it's a very similar process to what we did today. I never knew that it was so similar or probably the same as pickling. I used herbs and I used Indian gooseberry, and I never ate the gooseberries. I always drank the water. So you drink the water, then you refill more. So if you take out 1 cup of water, you put 1 cup in, and then it becomes a line, like you said, and you can use it for like a week or so till gooseberries go absolutely bland, and then your batch is over and you can ferment the next batch. So I've been doing this during winters when the gooseberries are in. I never knew that this is pickling.
Yeah. It is one of the, it's not the only kind of pickling. There's many kinds, but it is one kind of pickling.
Interesting.
I'm going to sort of back this up a little bit because we are at 2 minutes until my first batch of pickles is coming out of the water bath canner. I'm going to,
You know what's the most exciting thing of canning?
Those of you in, you can just see it's just boiling its little heart out. I have a separate timer going for the watermelon rind that I just added as opposed to the first set.
So you just said not more than 10 minutes because it starts turning mushy, but you want 10 minutes because you want it to kill the bacteria.
Yeah, exactly 10.
All right.
Not 9, not 11, 10. And they
And
sell.
who decided that? Is it just like, who decided that? Is this like, that's how it's always been, or people tested that?
10 is the overlap in the Venn diagram in between, kills all the bacteria and keeps your vegetables crispy. They overlap at 10 minutes. So a lot of people sell these tongs that you're supposed to use to get jars out of water. I have found that any tongs will work. You don't need special tongs. My work children are so tired of me like pickling and canning things at their house.
Yeah, my favorite part of canning is when those jars pop.
So unlike jellies and jams, which you cool standing upright, your pickle jars are going to cool inverted upside down. And
Oh, really?
I need to find a dish. Yeah, so you won't hear that.
Man, I'm learning so much stuff. I've been doing stuff wrong for years.
Way that you're used to, because it's going to be upside down. Oh, there's the timer. And here comes the pickle jar.
What are dinosaur eggs?
For salt water. So pop it out like that.
And the exciting part of the evening happened. Yeah, Monty, you missed it.
Pop it out like that, and then you put it down. And now I'm going to wrap it in a towel and try and turn that. Try and
flip it.
You're going to tighten the lid?
Yep, now I'm tightening the lid. Now I'm going finger tight with the lid.
That's arm tight. Rawr.
And then inverting?
Then inverting. I'm looking for a dish to invert it over. So that it does not.
So you do it on a dish? I always just did it on towels.
You can do it on a towel. I found that a dish collects the moisture if it leaks.
Well, I guess I just do, usually when I'm canning, I'm doing like 4 to 6 jars, so.
I got 2 going.
I suppose I could do. Flip it over, yeah.
But why are we inverting?
Because it helps it pull a vacuum more easily.
Okay.
So, camera B is showing now, it's inverted. If you have a knowledge of physics, you know that if it's going to try and pull a vacuum, it's going to try and, or as this headspace, as this, what looks like air at the top condenses as it cools down, takes up less space because hot air takes up more space than cold air, it's going to not be able to pull anything in from outside of the jar because there is no leak up here. The only possible opening is down here, and down here is being sealed by the liquid. So it will
Pull a vacuum.
Yeah, it'll pull a vacuum more easily. It is that jams and jellies are the weird ones that you can't flip it, because jams and jellies with too much flipping get shaken up and then they don't set properly. Anything else you're going to invert.
Really? I've never done that.
But because it's inverted like this, and because it's on this towel, we're not going to hear that ping. You're just going to be flipping it up tomorrow, or I will be flipping it up tomorrow and discovering that it did set properly.
Yeah, the worst sound, I've had that happen a couple times, is 3 days later when it pings the other direction.
It sucks air.
Yeah, when it gets loosened.
Well, if that happens, you just put it in the refrigerator and you're good.
I know, but I did that once. I canned 3 bushels of tomatoes, and it took me probably 20 minutes to find the jar that had pinged because I had so many of them. But now I know I should do that. Flip them over. I mean, that makes complete logical sense, but I've just never done it.
It's not one of those, that's the way it's always been done. There's a method to our madness. I got 4 minutes left on the other one, but we don't need to watch it happen twice. You can turn off that recording anytime you want.